Before we start today's sermon, let's take a few moments to worship the Supreme One, the infinitely compassionate One, the Sublime One, the Tathagata, by chanting the Namaskar 3 times all together and with me. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. I want to start by asking you to pinch yourself. So very lightly, just pinch yourself. Can you all feel it? You sure? Anyone here who can't feel it? Okay. What is that? What is that? When you pinch yourself, what do you feel? Well, it depends on how hard you pinch, but overall, you feel what? Pain. You see, pain, or physical pain, is unavoidable. And we all know this. I mean, it's not something that's new or special. Oh no, physical pain is unavoidable. We all know this. You fall down, you graze your knee, you're going to feel pain. You hit your head somewhere, you're going to feel pain. Headache, stomach ache, backache, knee ache, aches everywhere. Those are all physical pain. Now, here's the thing. Physical pain is unavoidable. But what about mental? What about mental pain? Mental pain is something that is different. Because physical pain can be measured. Physical pain can be measured. You can measure objectively the amount of pain you feel. Now, different people will have different, as we call it, pain thresholds. Meaning, people can bear a different amount of pain, but we all still feel pain. You can almost say human to feel pain. But it's not just humans, is it? Anything with a physical body can feel pain. But what about minds? What about minds? Mental pain is something that is subjective. I mean, if we think about this, right, we all have this idea that, we want to stay away from physical pain. That's why we know if you have a headache, what do we do? What do we do? We take medicines, right? We take paracetamol. If you have a stomach ache, you take medicines. If you have any sort of if you have any sort of pain in the body, we always try to avoid it. We always try to reduce it. And the only way we can do that is either trying to ignore it, or by taking something that will physically change the receptors in the body and nerves and whatnot, and neurotransmitters and X, Y, and Z to make us feel less pain. However, what about mental pain? What can we do to reduce mental pain? Now, different people have different solutions, but which one of those is long-lasting? So we can all agree, physical pain will always be there, for as long as we have what? For as long as we have a body, physical pain will always be there. Now you can say, well, when I'm asleep, I don't feel pain. But the moment you wake up, I got a stiff neck, or my shoulders hurting. I was sleeping on my arm, and now I've got a dead arm or dead arm. But what about mental pain? Now, mental pain can come in different ways. Right? Very simply, we have, sadness. That's a mental pain. Fear. That's a mental pain. Anger, that's a mental pain. Frustration, stress. These are all pain that the mind feels. But surprisingly, this pain is more self-inflicted. I mean that in every aspect. It's self-inflicted. Now, that's not saying you can choose. Because when you say something is self-inflicted, that means you can choose whether you feel pain or not. But it's not something that you can choose. Can you choose not to be sad? Can you choose not to be angry? See, our emotions aren't our choice. We can't choose whether we feel happy. We can't choose whether we feel sad. We can't choose whether we feel angry, frustrated, stressed. It's not a choice, but it is self-inflicted. Now, you can think, well, how is that possible? How can it be self-inflicted, but yet I have no control over it? So it can't be. It can't be then. How can it be self-inflicted and also not under my control? But if you look at it, why do I feel what I'm feeling? Why do I feel sad? Why do I feel angry? Why do I feel all these negative, all this mental pain? Why? All you have to do is take steps back and look at why it has happened. Now, before we continue, I want to share a meritorious deed that some of our anagarikas and also some of our noble hearts had done. Just yesterday, we had some guests over, right? And now in school, right, in our school, the Noble International School, currently it's exam season. So those of you who know will know that these children are working very hard to get the marks they deserve, right? So they're up, like, so for example, I know that some of the children are up at night trying to study. Because, see, even though they go to school and they have exams, I can tell you one thing, if I looked at my life compared to theirs, back when I was their age, the amount of stress I went through, they're not feeling not as much stress as I used to. So they're still up at night studying, revising for these exams, but they don't feel as much stress as I used to feel. And I don't think they feel as much stress as you used to feel going through these exams. So even in exam period, when these guests came over and some of our monks had asked them, we know you have exams. Can you come and give a small speech? Now, they all agreed, without like a modicum of doubt. They said, okay. One of them even studied an entire speech in a language that they don't normally speak. Why? Because they wanted to help. One of them was moderating this entire event with exams that were coming up tomorrow. No, actually, sorry, not tomorrow. With exams that are coming up just after they have exams. But they were willing to say, you know what, yes, I have exams, I have studied, I worked hard, but I'm willing to help as well. And so our guests came and they had their event, and eventually they had a Q&A session. And let me tell you, the questions these young children had asked surprised our guest. The question these young children asked surprised our guest. The first question, if I remember correctly, that was asked was, what do you think, right? And this child is, I'm guessing, around 10 or maybe 11. No, maybe 10, 11, right? When we were 10, 11, what do we think? How can I play this next game? How do I pass this next level? But this child was, the first question I was asked to this guest was, what do you think are good qualities a leader should have? And the guest was surprised. Never did they ever think a 10-year-old child would ask such a question. Now, the reason why I tell you this is because there's a point that was spoken. And what was spoken, it was about this massive issue that we as humans face. Now, you can say that, humans face, one of the biggest issues that humans are facing is poverty. Another issue is, in the future, we're running out of fossil fuels. How are we going to supply enough energy? On the other hand, we've got issues on climate change, right? Global warming, and all these massive issues. But there was an issue that was also talked about. And that issue was this: the amount of mental pain a person will go through. Because that's an issue that the human race has faced throughout our entire history. If you go, back many thousands of years, all humans have faced difficulties. But only a handful of them knows how to get rid of this mental pain. Only a small handful. Everyone else just accepted it. Okay, if I'm going to be sad, I'm going to make other people sad. If I'm going to be angry, I'm going to make other people angry. See, it's like this, right? When you are sad, you always look to make other people empathize with you. I think that's one thing some of our anagarikas and new monks as well, they find really hard to wrap their head around is when they're really stressed, right? So, there's some sort of problem they're facing, and they go talk to their teacher and says, this happened, that happened, and they're waiting for the response of, really? Did that happen? Okay, well, how are we gonna and they want the other person to empathize, to feel either sad or. I remember this is something that happened to me long ago. I remember I had an issue and I went to my teacher. I was really angry at something. And I wanted my teacher to also feel what? To empathize and think, okay, how are we gonna solve this problem? And we want them to also feel what? Stressed. But when they don't, we feel really uneasy. Like, why are you not stressing? You should be stressing the same amount as I am. So that's why when we're angry, when we're sad, when we feel, that's why we explain ourselves as well. When you're scared, right, and you're scared, and someone asks you, like, what's happened? Don't you need to explain yourself and say, I am scared because, I don't like spiders. But you don't end there. You end, I don't like spiders because you want the other person to understand and empathize and say, oh, spiders are also what? Scary. I don't like the dark. You want them to empathize and say, oh, dark, why are you scared of the dark? Oh, it's because, when it's dark, there's monsters. And you want people to empathize and say, oh, there's monsters. I'm also now scared of what? The dark. We want people to almost confirm our emotions. To say that your emotions are right. So coming back to this idea of mental pain, we want our we want this mental pain. Well, we don't like mental pain, that's the thing. We don't like it, but we want this mental pain to be there and people to empathize and say, okay, it's okay. Only a handful of people realize this mental pain is what? This mental pain is what? Self-inflicted. And so this handful of people, knowing it's self-inflicted, finds the way out. The rest, What are we going to do? I feel stressed. Let me start, watching a movie because I'm stressed. Trying to divert their problem somewhere else. Or let me go and order a pizza because I'm stressed, because I'm angry. Diverting the problem elsewhere. That's what when you don't realize that it's self-inflicted, what you do is you start to, direct it other way. And for example, if you feel sad or angry about something, your main focus is to change the outside. This person makes me angry. This person is making me sad. Let me change that. Not realizing that sadness, that fear, that anger, that stress isn't from there. It's from here. Self-inflicted. Self-inflicted. Something that one of my monks had explained, and it was very, very nice. It's a very nice way of thinking. See, objectively, we can measure things. So, for example, if you wanted to measure the height of this, you can bring a ruler, you can bring a caliper, you can bring X, Y, and Z, and we can all, if I had a ruler and I said this is, say 20 centimeters, and I give this ruler to someone else to check, if I know how to use a ruler, yes, we would all agree that it's 20 centimeters. You can weigh this, right, using scales or whatever, and we'll all come to the same conclusion that this weighs 75 grams. You could even measure the amount of energy that it emits. You can use scanners and instruments to see how much energy this actually has. Again, that's something you can measure. But can you measure the amount of suffering this gives you? Well, what machine is there to measure that? Can you measure how much happiness this gives you? What machine is there? The simple example is, what machine can measure the amount of, the feeling that we have when lids are in the wrong way? What machine is there? The happy machine, the sad machine? What machine is there to measure that? See, for different people, this will feel different. There are, like, for example, I don't know if you've done this in school, but I remember, to trick some friends, what we used to do is we used to change the ink cartridge from a red pen to a black pen, and then give the black pen to someone else to use, and they write in it's red pen. So we're not stressed that it's a red ink cartridge in a black pen, because we know what it is. But the other person's extremely stressed. Now, what machine can measure that? What machine can measure that? The amount of stress, the amount of anger. Or what machine can measure how beautiful this is? The beauty meter. Where is that? I mean, you can measure, its length. You can measure its weight. You can measure, you can take like what do you call those optical scanners, and even check the wavelengths of the light it emits. But there's no machine that can measure beauty. Because beauty is also what? Beauty is also what? Self-inflicted. So when we say self-inflicted, it's always a bad thing, right? No, beauty itself is what? Self-inflicted. It's something that comes because of So we're going to ask ourselves, because in our lives we'll feel both, physical pain and mental pain. But the thing with physical pain doesn't come alone. Physical pain doesn't come alone. It comes with its buddy, mental pain. You can really understand this is when, when you have a headache, you don't just feel the headache. What else do you feel? With the headache, you pull on the headache, and you pull all this feeling that, I know this headache is really bad. I won't be able to enjoy eating, let's say you have a cold, a simple cold. Now, cold will make you feel whatever, but you also think, I was planning to eat ice cream today. Now I can't eat the ice cream. I was planning to, go out and have some fun, but I can't. I have to stay inside. Wrapped. I really wanted to, do this, do that. So with the physical pain of having the cold comes mental pain as well. Not only this, right? When you have an illness, the first thing that we think about is, how long will I have this for? This is the thing. Doctors will always do this. They'll say, they'll give you a prescription and say, take it for 6 days. They do it for 2 reasons. One reason, because you need to be prescribed, of course. Number 2 is to make you feel, just 6 days. I just have to go through this for 6 days. This headache will only be there for 6 days, and that's it. Full stop. That's it. Because we always want to find, when will it end? So when you have a stomach ache, at that moment you feel the stomach ache. You also feel what? This stomach ache is going to be there for, some time. I've had this stomach ache for the last 2 days. 2 days, and I'm feeling this pain now. In the future, I'm going to feel more pain. And we put this all together, and we feel not just physical pain. Physical pain comes with his buddy, what? Mental pain. He comes with his best buddy, the mental pain, and says, we're both going to be felt together. Because physical pain is something that the mind will perceive. So we know the mind is there to, to perceive the external world. Now, that's why we have 6 senses, right? Well, we try to... the 6 senses are very interesting. We'll come to that in a bit, maybe. But we have, sight, sound, smells, taste, touch, and also our own thoughts and ideas. Now, pain is what is physical sensation. It's touch. So that is what... So pain itself is what gives rise to the mind. Just like when you see this, you identify, oh, it's a red pen. You perceive it's a red pen. Just like that, physical pain is also something that gives rise to a mind. It gives rise and says, oh, you are now perceiving pain in the elbow. And it comes and tells you this. But the mind, thanks to the view of fixedness, and we'll come to that as well, right? It says, okay, I'm feeling a pain in my elbow. Now I'm not going to be able to do what I wanted to do. I'm not going to be able to, I really wanted to make some food, but I'm not going to be able to. I really wanted to go somewhere, but I'm not going to be able to because why? My elbow. That's why people become really, really upset when they find out that they have something that will be permanently with them. That's why, people get really upset when they find out, say they have, say, diabetes. Something that's permanently with them. Meaning they're going to have to take that. It's something, what I mean permanently, there are certain situations where you can be not cured, but almost alleviated from it. But still, when you have this idea that this is something that's going to be with me, not for 6 days, not for 7 days, but for the rest of my life. Now pain is what? Mental pain is what? Is up high. Because we're always thinking, oh, wait, I'm feeling pain. I felt this much pain, and I'm going to feel this much pain. We put them all together and we feel that in a single mind. So physical pain is unavoidable. But mental pain is self-inflicted. Let me explain this self-infliction part. All right, so we have what? We have an object. We have an eye. This is an amazing eye that can see this object. Now, last week we explained that just having an eye and an object is not enough. If that is enough to see, even dead bodies should be able to see because they have an eye. Or we plug an eye into a machine, and the machine still won't be able to see. Because not just the eye and the object, you need something extra. You need the mental base, a mind base. Now, what is a mind base? This is a good question. What is a mind base? A mind base is basically the environment for a mind to arise. This is why, a mind doesn't arise everywhere. Because it needs an environment to arise. And now what the environment is will change. So for each and every one of us, we have the environment. No, I can't say inside of us. Because the mind isn't something that's, inside or outside. But the environment is there for the mind to arise. Like for an animal, the same thing. The environment is there for the mind to arise. And when an object and eye come into contact, now what? The mind arises. Arises, identifies, perceives, and passes away. Now, that is the job of the mind. That is the fundamental job of the mind. To receive, well, technically, the entire purpose of the mind is just to perceive. The entire purpose of the mind is to perceive. However, the mind has it has the smallest it has a view that says, I see object. I sees the object. But the mind has a view, but then someone has to be seeing this object. That I am seeing this object. And so it creates this feeling of what? I am seeing. Now, it's not wrong. This is a really nice point to think about. Is ignorance wrong? Is ignorance wrong? Is ignorance wrong? It's wrong because of ignorance we're feeling suffering, right? So it has to be wrong. Is jati wrong? Is this feeling of being fixed wrong? Is anger wrong? Is sad wrong? Being sad wrong? So is ignorance wrong? It's not wrong. Because it's part of the world. It is part of the world. When you look at it through this, do you think, oh, ignorance is a bad thing, we don't like ignorance? But in the aspect of the world, ignorance is just one part of it. Just like, is this pen wrong? Is this pen wrong? It's a whiteboard pen. Oh no, it's wrong? No, it's just one item. Or, is the quality of, say, flammable? Is the quality of flammable wrong? Because of the quality of flammable, hundreds of people die every year. But is the quality of flammable wrong? No, it's just a quality that's in the world. It's a quality that's part and parcel of this earth. So ignorance is not wrong, it's just a part of earth. It's just that ignorance gives rise to what? Mental pain. That's why it's wrong. But even in the aspect of the world, that's still not wrong. Mental pain is just the difference between mental pain and this pen. So, for the earth, the difference between mental pain and this pen is what? For the earth? Nothing, they're both the same. But for the mind that's feeling this mental pain, now what? Oh no, we don't like mental pain, but red pens are nice. So coming back, right? So I am seeing. It comes to this idea of I am seeing. Or let's take a better example. Instead of you seeing, let's say, okay, my drawing skills have to be amazing. This is when you know I'm amazing at art. There you go. That looks like a table. What's this? It's a foot. Good. It looks like a foot, right? Yeah. When you stub your toe, right? When you come and you hit your foot on a table or on something hard, that gives rise to what? A mind. The mind arises, the mind passes away. But because of ignorance, the mind feels what? I am. I'm feeling pain. It doesn't stop there. I'm feeling pain because of this table. Now, have you not seen, when you see this a lot with little children, but you also see this with big children as well. As in, when little children, when they bump into something, they bump in, they fall down, right? They get really angry at the thing they bumped into. I remember one day, I got to see a toddler bump into a chair. Literally, I think he's a 2 or 3 year old. He stands up and goes to a chair and starts going, can't speak, I don't think, goes to the chair. Really angry at the chair because the chair is the one that pushed him over, right? So he got angry at the chair. Now, when you feel this, you also think, why am I feeling pain? Not because my foot hit it, it's because the chair was there or the table was there. When do you ever blame yourself thinking, oh, I'm feeling pain because because I have a foot? Because if you didn't have a foot, would you feel this pain? If you did not have a foot, would you feel this pain? When was the last time you blamed your foot or blamed yourself for having a foot? I wish I didn't have a foot, so I don't feel this. No, we don't think that. We think, no, my foot is okay. I need my foot. But, it's the table that's a mistake. And that's why you'd adjust the table. Even though it's in this perfect position, you still adjust it or feel the need to adjust it so you don't bump your foot again. Because why? What's at fault here? The table. So you're not just feeling, I am feeling pain, but you're feeling that I'm feeling pain because of this table. Not only that, I'm going to feel, when you stub your toe, it's excruciatingly painful, right? And you feel, this pain is going to be there for for a couple of hours. Not only that, you think, well, did I break my toe? Normal feeling. You look and you check if your toe is broken because you hit it so hard. So you're now going through, I'm feeling pain because of this, right? I'm going to feel this pain for so long. Has my toe broken? Has my toe broken? And then at the end, and so at the end, then it feels, okay, all of this put together into one mind, it feels this X amount of pain. And that's why, when you feel so much pain, because if you think about this, right, how does swearing reduce pain? Normally when people stub their toe, they come to automatically, almost automatically, something comes out of their mouth, right? Why? Now, the reason because when they feel all this pressure, they want to feel, right? They want to reduce this pressure somehow. Physical pain they can't control, but mental. Remember, mental is what? Self-inflicted. They say, I think it's scientifically proven, when you feel like a lot of pain, right? They say by swearing, it reduces the pain. Now, why that happens, it's not because it reduces physical pain. Physical pain will still be there. What it does, reduces mental pain. That mental vexation that builds up because of everything else. By saying, see, it doesn't need to be a swear word. By saying anything out of anger will reduce it. Because this part is this is the true part of nature. Everything else here, it's because of the table, X, Y, and Z. That's all what? Self-inflicted. Because you think that, I am the one feeling pain. For example, when sometimes when you watch a video, and you watch a video of a person stubbing their toe, you also feel this almost like a phantom pain. Like you also feel pain, do you not? The other day I did something. No, the other day I did this. Long ago actually, I did something very horrible. I had an aunt, right? Back when I was a lay person, I had an aunt who had something wrong with her knee and had to get knee surgery. So me being one of the most annoying nieces, I went online and searched for a video about knee replacements. Now, for those of you who don't know, knee replacements, you have to cut out the knee and replace it with metal and stuff like that. And I showed it to her. She fainted. I didn't know why she fainted, so I looked. And automatically my knee felt numb. Right? My knee itself felt numb. There was something wrong with my knee as well now. It's because when you see these sort of things, when you see someone in pain, automatically you feel, if that happens to me. So for example, we don't have videos about this because I don't want anyone to faint. But let's say, okay, I'll give you a very light description, right? If I remember clearly. So they get the scalpel and they cut open the knee. You automatically feel, my knee, when it's cut, I'm going to feel X amount of pain. And then I think I remember very vividly that there's a part where the surgeon has a metal rod and a hammer and is pummeling at this metal rod. Every single time, right, this doctor hits this rod, you feel something happening with your own knee. Because you're feeling, if that happens to me, I mean, the patient himself or herself is knocked out cold, given anesthetic, doesn't feel anything, but you feel it. Because why? You think, when this happens to me, you are experiencing this almost phantomly. Nothing's happening to you, but you are feeling, if this happens to me, what am I going to feel? Every hit, oh, that's going to be very painful. Like what they do is in surgeries, when there's too much blood, they would actually start burning, using lasers to burn the arteries to stop it from overbleeding, right? You don't want blood loss. Every time this laser hits not laser, it's almost like a soldering iron, the things they use to solder electronics, to burn and close the. Okay, I'm no I'm no surgeon, so I don't know the technical terms, but they use it to block off the veins and arteries, I think. But every time they use it, you also feel pain, because what you're doing is you are feeling, if I feel that, if this happens to me, what am I going to feel? Or even better, sometimes when, because I remember once I'm going with my mother to go somewhere, right, when I was maybe 4 or 5. I remember we went to a bus stop, and unfortunately at the bus stop there was a person who was sick and had thrown up, and I automatically felt the need to what? Because again, there's also physical things, but most importantly, mentally you feel, I also feel disgusted. So what? I also need to do what? Because we're now putting everything, and we're putting it to ourselves and saying, if this happens to me, if that happens to me. I mean, that's why we love stories, movies. When let's say you're watching a very heartbreaking movie, what you are imagining is what? If this happens to me, what am I going to feel? Oh no. But luckily it's not real. It's not real. So that's why you'll most happily go and watch it. Because it's not real. It's not happening to you. You imagine it's happening to you, and this person's doing that, this person's doing that, and you feel it. But all stories end happily, so there'll be an end, happy ending. And then you feel joy because you're feeling what? If this happens to me, how much joy will I feel? Again, that, the pain that you feel is self-inflicted. It's because you feel that it's happening to you. See, when you watch someone else, stub their toe, you don't feel physical pain, but the mental pain is because you feel what? If this happens to me, if this happens to me, what am I going to feel? See, we have to come back to our senses, and we have to understand what, why, how. Is these questions that we have to ask ourselves. Why am I feeling what I'm feeling? Because feeling pain is one thing, but I am is something different. Because the next time you feel pain, right? Next time you feel pain, really think about this. How much pain are you actually in? Because when you're mindful, when you're aware, what you realize is the actual amount of pain that you feel is substantially less than if you were not mindful about it. Because when you're mindful, you are now isolating just pain. So if you were to give it a number out of 10, right? You'll give it a 4, or say normally you give it a 7. But when you isolate, you'll actually see it's not a 7, it's maybe a 5 or a 4. But the mind worsens it. So physical pain goes along with his best buddy, mental pain. What you have to do is show it that those two are not connected. Those two are two separate things. Like the other day, I got one of our children had a chest pain. He was scared of what? Scared of what? What happens if this becomes worse and I die? So he's now scared of what? So this chest pain he feels is making him feel what? Just chest pain? Is his mind just feeling chest pain here? No, he's now, what happens if will it become, will I die? So he's not just feeling pain, but he's also feeling what? The pain of, the fear of what? Death. The pain of fear of death. Step back and if you just feel the chest pain, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe, just by taking some medicine, maybe applying a balm, maybe that's enough. But to satisfy the mind, what do you need now? You need a doctor to tell you, you're gonna be okay, don't worry. You need a professional, someone to say, you're gonna be okay. Even if if someone that you are very close to says, it's okay, you're gonna be fine. We don't trust them because they lie a lot, right? We want someone in the professional field to tell us we're okay. So we can feel what? I'm going to be what? Okay. See, the issue that we have is not with feeling pain. Pain is okay. Issues here. I am. The issue is not with, stubbing your toe with the table. It is, I feel that I stubbed my toe on the table. That's the issue. That's why it's self-inflicted. It's because you feel that it's you who's done it. It's you who's feeling it. Now you can say, well, I can't give my pain away. How good life would be if you can share 50% of your pain. You broke your leg. Then you go to your best friend, can you take 50% of my pain? How good would that be, right? Sharing pain. But you can't do that. But so you think that, no, but pain is mine. It's something that goes on with my body. No, pain is just, almost very simply, what is pain? Pain is receptor in the body that's telling your brain/mind that it's stimulated. And your brain interprets it to be what? Pain. And then the mind, and then it comes to the idea of, okay, how do I get rid of it? We have pain for protection as well. If you can't feel pain in your hands, that's an issue. I remember once I got to watch a documentary about a person who couldn't feel pain at all. That I think her pain receptors weren't working or something. Which was very dangerous because in the interview she was explaining how she's burnt her hands several times. She's cooking, has left her hand on the stove. And she's doing something else. And the only reason that she takes her hand away is because she can smell what? Burning flesh. That's how it's dangerous. That's why we have these receptors. But remember, pain is just, it's a receptor. It's not this massive feeling that, oh, I'm going to die. No, it's just a receptor. But this feeling that it's so bad comes from what? I am feeling this amount. Really focus. When you feel pain, really focus. How much pain am I feeling? It's because when you ask these questions, do you really come to this clear idea of how much pain you truly are in? Now, we talked about pain tolerance, right? How some people have higher pain tolerance than others. technically your body has the pain tolerance of, it can resist pain until what? When pain becomes too much, what does your body automatically do? Shuts off. That's the limit of your pain tolerance. But we think that, no, I can only, if I can only resist this much. No, the mind can only resist that much. The body can resist until it shuts off. Shuts off meaning you faint. But the mind, says, I can't feel this. I don't want to feel this. Like those of you who've ever gone to the gym, you'll really understand this, right? How, you go to the first day. Your first day you can't do anything because, it's really tiring, really painful, whatnot. But after a month, 2 months, now the pain, you get used to the pain. The pain that you try to avoid at first becomes something that gives you pleasure because you understand that by doing this, I'm getting the reward that I want. Not because physical pain is good, right? Physical pain is always painful. It's just the mind can make it feel good. The mind can make it feel good. Not that it's good. It makes it feel good. So for example, you're in the gym exercising and your muscles are screaming, but your mind tells you screaming muscles are good. Because why? That means what? You're becoming stronger, or you're going to become more muscular, or X, Y, and Z. So that's the thing. You realize that I can resist more pain. Now, it's not healthy. I'm not saying to have extremely high pain tolerance. No, I'm trying to ask you to think about it. Really think about it. When you feel pain, how much pain are you actually feeling? Because is this asking of this question, do you separate this idea of this mental pain with physical pain? It's because if you don't separate these two things out, well, what you're going to do is you're going to feel both of these together. Now, not only this. Where does this pain come from? Where does the pain come from? The foot? The leg? So the leg of the table or the foot? Or where does it exactly come from? At what point does it become pain? At what point do you feel pain? Right, so that's object, foot. Object, foot not touching yet. Object, foot touching. And object, foot not touching. Which one of these is the source of your pain? Which one of these is the source of your pain? Is it A, B, C, or D? Which one is the source? Do you want to should I give you 50-50? 50-50, okay. It's not D, and it's not A. Do you want to ask the audience? Or what do you want? The answer is not B, but not C either. Then what is the answer? Pain is felt here. Neither that nor this. Here. You are feeling pain in the mind. Now, pain is pain. Okay, we want to steer away from physical pain because physical pain is something that you can physically feel. That's why the Buddha says, with physical pain, some physical pains you have to endure, some physical pains you have to avoid. But let's take another example, right? We've got flowers behind me, right? So we'll take flowers. Here's something that's really, if you really understand this, you no longer need not just flowers, but anything externally. Now let's say, no, this flower is not beautiful, but let's say it's beautiful flowers like these, right? Let's say, okay, imagine this was as beautiful as these flowers, right? Where do you see these flowers? Is the flower here? Oh, let's take that color. Is the flower here? Is the flower here? Or is the flower here? The flower that you perceive is not here. Now, a good way to explain this is, it's a very good way. You know how some animals can't see colors? Instead, they see, heat signatures. Like, for example, snakes. Or a really good example, like, have you watched the film Godzilla? Godzilla can't see people. Can only see what? Heat. So let's say we had a snake here, or let's say we have Godzilla here. Can they see flower? Can they see this flower? They just might see a small difference, because plants usually are slightly colder than the environment due to its process inside. So it might see a slight difference. But what shape will that difference be? What shape? Will they say, will Godzilla say, look at flower? No, they'll see just a shape, won't know what it is. But let's say they don't see a shape. See, even though they may be this flower that we can see in front of this snake or in front of Godzilla, the animal or Godzilla can't perceive it. So the flower isn't there. But you can say it's because Godzilla doesn't have the eyes, right? He only can see heat signatures. All right, let's take a human then. We have a flower and then we have an eye. Do we see a flower? Okay, let's pull. In a very horrible way. We pulled out an eye of a dead body and we showed it to a flower. We showed the eye a flower. Will the eye see a flower? No, but if we wanted to, we can, say we had some. Say we can take some wires, and say, okay, it's giving me, I don't know, 3.2 microvolts. You remove the flower, it's giving you, just 3.1 microvolts. Oh, so there's a microvolt difference. But is the eye seeing flower? No, you can show this pen instead. And then it'll give you a different number of volts per second or per millisecond, or I don't know how accurate I don't know how eyes will send messages, how fast they send it. But say example. So even the eye doesn't see the flower. So where are these flowers? It must be here then. So here's my question. Can we all see these flowers? Either in front of me, or if you can't see in front of me, behind me. Can we all see these flowers? What are you actually seeing? What are you actually seeing? You're seeing your mind. This is your mind. Now you can say, well, does that mean there's nothing here? No, I mean, there is something there. But what that something is not a flower. For example, there are people, let's say, see, when we talk about things that we can't see, we can always have an argument because it's not there. We don't know it's there. So if we said, let's take the example of ghosts. There will be some people who says, ghosts are real. There'll be some people who say ghosts aren't real. Because why? Some people believe it. Some people say, well, we can't see it, so we can't believe it. But if we took the example that ghosts are real, right? Now, I'm not saying they are or aren't, right? But if we took the example they are real, our eyes can't see it. Can they? I don't know. I can't see ghosts. So even though they may be, instead of here, a ghost, the mind cannot perceive. So in my world, in my mind, there are no ghosts. No. In my mind, I cannot see ghosts. Not that there are no ghosts. I can't see. Well, technically, in my mind, there is no ghosts. That's right. So what are you actually seeing? So let's say, you go pick a flower. What are you picking? What are you picking? You're picking your mind. You're smelling the flower. What are you smelling? Your mind. Well, let me rephrase that. You're not smelling your mind. You're smelling a mind. I mean, how I remember someone taught me that you can pick the end of a flower, and sometimes you can take the nectar. So you can taste what? What can you taste? What can you taste? What can you taste? A mind. Someone came in and took the flower and scrunched it and threw it on the floor. What are you seeing? A mind. So what does this flower have to do with you? What does this have to do with you? Nothing, because everything you perceive is here. I really like chocolate cake. I really love chocolate cake. But if I eat it, what am I eating? A mind. If I smell, wow, it smells of what? What are you smelling? A mind. What are you seeing? A mind. Because out here, it's pretty much irrelevant what's outside there. For as long as you feel as what? There's a flower there. That's why, all you need to do is if someone can make you feel as though something is like that, and makes your mind feel it, that's enough. Outside here, actually, if we can find a way to plug in, wires into the mind, then even these two are irrelevant. Technically, the eye itself is irrelevant because it's not the eye that is seeing. It is the mind that is perceiving. So you are seeing what? So how sometimes, you come home after a long day, right? And you want to make your absolute most favorite meal. So you're at the stove cooking, cleaning, and doing all that. Only to eat what? Oh, so you work, you come home after, you've been working so hard, 40-hour a week, right? You did some overtime as well because you need extra money for the food, of course. And you're cooking, you're buying items and doing all this, and you get a massive, you make your favorite meal. Only to eat what? Or only to not eat, only to taste what? A mind. Working so hard so you can taste what? A mind. The mind rises, the mind passes away, next spoon. The mind rises, the mind passes away, next spoon. Nothing, it's almost like you're trying to trying to fill a sieve. No matter how much you try, the sieve will always let everything go. Because we can only associate what? The mind. If you really see this, if you really understand this, sometimes it's hilarious what people do. I'm gonna work really hard, right? Because I want to go on a holiday to say to Hawaii, so I can see what? A mind. I'm actually gonna work hard. I'm gonna build a rocket to go to the moon to see what? A mind. The mind rises, the mind passes away, and then no one has ever traveled to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. I'm going to go there, and I'm going to see what? And I'm going to see what? A mind. When you really look at it, you've never associated anything. You've only been associating your mind. But you feel as though, this is a red pen, and I like red pen, but this red pen is only where? In your mind. But that's not saying, again, let me repeat, that's not saying there's nothing here. There is something here. But you will never know. You will never know. Because color is just a perception that you feel. For Godzilla, what color is this? For a bird, what color is this? It's a really good paradox, isn't it? That how do we know the colors that I'm seeing is the same colors that you see? How do we know? Because, let's say this is red for you and this is blue for you. But in my mind, this is red, the color red here, the color blue here. But growing up, everyone tells me what color is this? This is red. So I see blue but call it red. I see red and can call it blue. So when someone says, what color is that box? I'm seeing blue, but I know it, I identify as what? Red. So how do I know I'm seeing the same colors as you? But yet I think that, everyone here is wearing some white, right? Sitting on some black chairs or some light brown chairs, right? I say, these flowers are like a blue, purple, and those are all what? Perceptions that I feel. You guys? All of you? I don't know what you're seeing. Because why? This is real for my world. For a mind. But for you? That's why, because we really think that, this is what the world is. My world, I've got black, I've got red, I've got blue pens. But all of these three are just a mind. So why do I feel that one of them is more special than the other? Why do I feel one of them is more special than the other when both of these are just what? A mind. A mind perceiving black pen, a mind perceiving red pen. That's why someone who's an arahant, someone who has understood this, you give them a black pen. Okay, you give them a red pen. Right, you give them a blue pen. You give them all three. You give them, you don't give them pen, but you give them pencil. You can give them anything and they'll be okay. But right now we have, normally I should write in black. So right now, those of you who have a book, if you go through your pages, most of your pages will be in one color. You've only written in one color, either a black or a blue. Because do you think that this is the color that I write in? So for example, I remember, going to school, I only wrote in blue. But then exams, you had to write in black. And you think, okay, I write in blue, but now I write in black. And you feel a difference. But in reality, what's the difference? Okay, let's take a brand. Let's say I've got Bic. Let's say you have a black Bic pen, right? And a blue Bic pen. What is the difference in writing these two? You have a black, a blue, and a red. Don't you feel red? Writing in red is strange. That's not right. We should be writing either in black or in blue. Why are we writing in red? I remember I used to have a friend who would always get told off for writing in weird colors. Right? Purple, orange. Right? His books will be, it's not that he's note-taking, it's just that he, puts his hand in his pencil case, takes whatever pen and starts writing with it, regardless of the color. You look at it and you think, the teachers look at it and think, you should be writing in the blue or black. But he's like, no, I'm writing in rainbow. I'm writing in rainbow colors, it doesn't matter. But we feel a difference. Why do we feel a difference? Because both of them are what? Both of them are what? They're just a mind. Just a mind. A mind arising and sees red, a mind arising and sees black. Just a mind, but yet you feel, no. Black pens are... how you can get really expensive pen brands? I remember, people who wrote with really good pen brands, right? They, writing in that pen would be such a pleasure. It'd be so, I remember, I remember one of my friends had a really good pen shell. And we put a really cheap ink cartridge into the shell of this incredibly expensive pen, and we gave it to people to write and to rate their experience. They say, "Wow, it's so smooth. The ink flow is so consistent. There's no smudging." And then you give them the brand, the normal pen in. The normal pen with its case, and they say, it's a bit tough. I don't have the same feel. I think they did this. They actually did this before with strawberries. I was told that there's this new strawberry where they have a single strawberry in a case. Right? So you can buy just one strawberry, and it's expensive, like £10, $10 per this one strawberry. And the people had done an experiment where they would replace it with just a store-bought strawberry, and give it to people, and to rate their experience. And people who open and they eat and they say, there's a different taste. It tastes, very fresh, right? It comes from the box says it comes from Japan, right, and whatnot. So it tastes really different. And then they give the store-bought one in its box and say, have this one. And they say, it tastes really sour or bitter or whatnot. And I remember they did it with a food expert as well. Someone like a a chef. And so the chef would be talking about texture and saying how amazing the texture is, and how, the flavors in the mouth and whatnot. And when he received the store-bought one, he would tell how it's really, really cheap. You can taste that cheap taste. And then the presenter would say, actually both of these are exactly the same. It's just one of them was in a different box. And the chef stormed away, unable to comment on that. But we still feel a difference. We feel a difference between strawberries and, say, watermelons and mangoes and bananas and carrots and potatoes, and we feel all these to be very different things, but each and every one of them are just what? A thing a mind can feel. You hear children, or not just children, you yourselves will say, I like mangoes, but I don't like wood apple, or I like wood apple, don't like the bananas, right? I don't like banana. But you always have, one of them tastes better than the other, but both of them are just what? The mind arises and the mind passes away. That's it, full stop. But you feel something completely different. Because why? I am eating this amazing fruit. I love what? Mangoes, and I'm eating a mango. I love it. And that's why, even days are special. Days are special. Why is, the 1st of January so special? What's the difference between the 1st and 2nd? The 1st of April is also very special. But what about 2nd? Birthdays are special. But what about the other days? All of these are just what? A mind arises, the mind passes away, but yet you've placed value in this. What's so valuable about the day that you were born times X amount of years? I mean, the day you were born was special because you were born. But after 20, 30 years, how is that day still special? We're coming up to, the Sri Lankan New Year's, right? The 13th and 14th, right? Yes, 13th and 14th of April. Why do we feel, why do we feel it to be so special? Now ads are all talking about this, buy this new chair for the Sri Lankan New Year, right? 50% off these things for the Sri Lankan New Year. We've made it feel so special, but still, it's just a mind arises and the mind passes away. The mind arises and the mind passes away. That's it. Full stop. No, but we feel, no, it's special. There's something in it that's special. Something that's beyond what? That's beyond the day, that there's something else special. But we have to remember, it's just a mind. You've never associated anything but your own mind. People get married, right? Married to what? We're not going to go there, are we? People get married to who? Not to who, to what? A mind. Oh. See, when I say a mind, I don't mean a mind, but I mean mind. So not someone else, but a mind. See, even if you think about it, if you were to break down your life and look at it step by step, you realize, I got married to a mind. I had an entire day dedicated to a mind, right? We had a party. Well, no, we had a party. We had a mind, right? We ate mind. We drank mind. We We watched Mind. I mean, think about how boring life would be if we just talked about reality. What did you do yesterday? Right? I did Mind. I went Mind. Oh no, you can't even say that. You just say, because you talk about reality, you can't talk about going anywhere. So you say, Mind. So the question will be very simple as well. The question will be mind. The answer will be mind. Because you can't ask like where did you go? Because that's not, you're gonna have to talk about a lot of other stuff. But you'll just say mind. Or very simply, what did you do over the weekend? Cause and effect. What do you have for breakfast? Cause and effect. What are you going to do today? Cause and effect. What is your plans for the future? Cause and effect. I mean, it's very in a world of ignorance, right? It's a very weird world, right? The world of reality. But it's the world. It is the one thing that people love. People really like. We all love stories, right? But when you talk about reality, where do stories come from? I mean, when we look at things, we come up with stories. For example, right? Some paint has spilled on this tile. What goes on in your mind? Paint has spilled. That means someone must have been painting here. Oh, it's a black paint. So someone's been painting something black. Is there anything black around here? This stand. They must be sprayed. And you're creating a story that's not even there. Because you don't see it as mind. You see it as this is the story. I mean, if you think about this, our mind loves stories. Right? They say it comes from our survival. We used to be, back when we were, cavemen. We used to be, sort of gathered around a fire, telling stories to one another. But really, stories are we enjoy stories because it confirms this idea of I did this, I did that, this was that. Now, something that's really interesting is now. I want to touch upon this point as well, but we won't go too far. Is when we talk about cause and effect, what are the causes? I mean, take for example, say this mic. What are the causes? It's very easy to say, one of the causes had to be, there's a factory that made this. There has to be a factory that made this. That has to be a cause, right? Because without the factory, this wouldn't have been made. But is the factory actually a cause? But then you can say, well, if the factory isn't a cause, then this mic wouldn't be here. But the factory is not a cause. What did the factory actually do? What did the factory actually do? The factory did absolutely nothing. What happened? What happened? For a mic to be there, let's take something more simple. Let's take a chair. The chair that you sat on. The chair that you sat on had been made in a factory. Was the factory a cause? The factory is not a cause. So what did the factory do? The factory did not do anything. Instead, now this is connecting several things that we've talked about in the past, right? Especially about necessity. What the factory did was create necessity. The necessity for a chair. And then brought along an environment. and brought along an environment. Then a chair was made. Was it? Then the chair was made. Then the causes came together to give rise to what? The effect of a chair? An effect. That's what we call a chair. Let me repeat that, right? You and I and anyone in this world can't make anything. Or you can say, well, aren't I the one putting this cap on this pen? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense, in a 2D world, yes, I'm the one who put the cap on. But what really happened was that there was a necessity. For example, I give this to a toddler. Right? It's a toddler who's never seen a whiteboard pen before, who's never seen a pen before. What will they do? Take, put together. I think most likely this part will be in their mouth. This part will be up their nose, right? Because they don't know. But for us, we have a necessity. This idea that, this has to be like this. When there's necessity, and not only necessity, when there's environment. For example, the environment meaning that, like, I'm not writing. If I'm writing, even though there's a necessity, the environment's not there. But not only that, but say something's wrong with my hands, I can't grip onto things. Now, if I see this, I can't do anything about this. And let's say no one else around me either, now all I can do is leave it alone. When there is necessity and when there's the environment, now things can come together. Or causes can come together to give rise to an effect. So for this chair to be made, what had there must been? Necessity and the environment. The necessity at this moment is still there. How do we know that? The chair is still there. Let's say we no longer require these chairs. What will happen? We throw them outside. Right? Then they are exposed to the elements. The rain, the cold, the heat. What will happen? I don't know do you remember our old, those white chairs, you can actually, some of the older ones, you can scratch off the layer of the top. Why is that? Because now the causes come together in that way. So at this moment, this chair being in its form is because of what? What are the causes for this chair? Necessity and the environment. Now, I really do want you to take this with a pinch of salt, because this is not something that you really need to know. But what you have to understand is the causes of this chair isn't its past. It's very simple to think its past is what it's the factory. The factory and the plastic that came from X, Y, and Z had to be injected into a mold, and therefore we have a chair. That idea of the causes are in the past is wrong. The causes that come together at this moment is the causes that make it arise. At this moment, the causes are coming together. What causes? Now, we can't really tell you. We can't really say. Because who knows what the causes are? Because you can say, okay, plastic is the causes. Then what's the cause of plastic? Right? Plastic is a hydrocarbon. So you got carbon, hydrogen, and all this stuff. And you can say, what is the cause of carbon and hydrogen? You can say, protons, neutrons, electrons. And you can say, what are the causes of proton, neutrons, electrons? Then you can say, these quarks and these positrons and leptons, and you can go further and you say, what's the cause of this? And you can go on and on and on and on. So we can't really come in and pinpoint and say these are the causes. But what we can say is that for the chair to be there, there must be what? For water to be there, what is there? No, how do you phrase this question properly? What needs to be there for this structure to be like this? You need the bond between these two. Because of its necessity in before, is it in this sort of shape? Now, what I can do is say, in science you learn about what do you call it, electrolysis, right? Where you have a cathode and an anode, and you supply with electricity. And what you can do is actually break this and then pull, if I remember correctly, it will be hydrogen this side, oxygen this side. Yes, I think so. And separate water. Now, water to be separated, what had there needed to be? What had there needed to be? Necessity. Necessity had to be there. Now, if I asked, whose necessity? Whose necessity? Is it because I wanted that this happened? Is it because you wanted this happened? No, necessity was there. Therefore, this happened. So this will go over here, and this will go over here. That's necessity. So now it's in a different form. Why is it in a different form? Because necessity. But can't we change it again? We give it a bit of fire, right? And what do we have here? What do we have here? This is now a very explosive material, right? As it explodes, what do you have? What do you get back? You don't get back anything. Nothing comes back. Because for something to come back, that means water had to be there first. Water had to be there first, and water had to be fixed. But in reality, it's not that it's not that you are remaking water. More that water will again manifest. So, is it because I put these two electric rods, these metal rods inside, did it become hydrogen and oxygen? Or is it because I put the flame, did it become water again? Which one is it? Neither. It's because of necessity did it change. Because of the causes did it change. So the water's past is irrelevant. The chair's past is irrelevant. What is relevant in that moment is the necessity that is there at that moment. Necessity that's there at that moment. Nothing in the past. The chair's history is history. It's not because, say, this company had put together, do we have the chair? No. The company made a necessity and had the environment to to put the causes together. The causes came together, and then we had a chair. That chair is what we have, is not what we have here. But every moment, the causes come together to give rise to an effect. This is why, you can see, this is why you can see the difference between a new chair and an old chair. How can we say one of them is new, one of them is old? Because one of them looks very clean and just out of the factory. The other one, there's people have drawn on it. There's paint is peeling off. No, there's nothing is old or new. It's just at that moment, this is the effect. That's why you can have this concept of recycling. You take the old chair and you grind it down, you give it a fresh lick of paint, and now you have what? An old chair? Is it still old? They say one man's trash is another man's treasure. You give it a lick of paint and now it's a new chair. No one will say, oh, why do you have an old chair with you? No, it's now a new chair. Because now the causes come together to give rise to that effect. Because of necessity. You see, the causes that come together are the causes that happen at this moment. The past is irrelevant because the past has nothing to do with it right now. Except it just had the effect. Past had the effect, had the effect, had the effect. Same thing with you. Your past is irrelevant. The effect that you have, that is what we call you, is something arises at this moment. Is something that arises at this moment. Previous moment is irrelevant. But you can say, well, isn't it because I did this, did I get this? And for example, isn't it because I learned 1 + 1 = 2, did I become, did I get a PhD in maths? Yes, but no. This was a cause and an effect in that moment. That gave you what? Well, not gave you. That was stored as what? As memories. That memory could be drawn at this moment. That's why, I could say, what is 7 times 7? And automatically all of you would have been, that has to be what? That has to be what? What is it? 7 times 7? 49. Good. See? It's not that it's because I learned it before. No, because it's in your memory at this moment. That's why, in exams, you've studied it so well, but you sat down in front of the test, and the question is, what is 7 times 7? You're like, I have no clue. Because at that moment, you can't draw it out. At that moment, you can't draw it out from your memory. Therefore, at that moment, you don't know what 7 times 7 is. So it's not because you learned it before do you now know it. It's because it's in the memory now. So this is why you are someone who arises at this moment. Your past is irrelevant. But so I know this, isn't it because I did all this merit that I am at this moment, I'm in this place, able to listen to the Dhamma and do all these meritorious activities. Is it because of the merit that you did in the past? No. It's because of the merit that's come into fruit at this moment. See, what we have to understand is, it's this moment that gives rise to this effect. There is no history that can control that effect. As in, you can say that, well, isn't it because this happened or that happened? No, all of that contributed to a condition at this moment, but it's not because of that did this happen? And I'm saying this and that a lot. Are you guys getting the gist of it? We're the history is history. History is not a cause. History is never a cause. All that it does, it just changes an effect which can, have a domino effect, but that domino effect only affects that moment. Does that make sense? Or do I sound like gibberish? Gibberish? Yeah? Let's try it one more time, right? Okay. I have 3 pens. I am making a structure out of these 3 pens. I'm not going to try because it's going to fall, but I made a structure. Is it because I had 3 pens in the beginning, do I have this structure? Now, you can easily argue and say, well, if you did not have these 3 pens, you couldn't make the structure. But what we have to realize is, these 3 pens, making this structure, is because, not because, I have 3 pens. It's because the causes have aligned in that moment, in that way, for me to make the structure. For example, no matter how hard I try to stand this pen up, it's got a round bottom, I can't. That's why, the black one stands. This one goes on top. Because the causes align at this moment for this effect. Now, but for this to be with me now, this had to be processed and made in a factory. So isn't a factory a cause for this? No, because all the factory did was have the necessity and the environment to create the effect that we call a pen. And that's all it did. The next moment, because of necessity, the pen is still what? The pen is still what? Pen is still? The pen isn't still rising. Because of the environment, a pen manifests. The next moment, because of the environment, the pen manifests. And you can pinpoint and say the story and say, this used to belong in a shop, right? It was sold in a shop. A person went to the shop, bought it, and gave it, and you can make the story. But in reality, for this pen to be here at this moment is, the past. You can only say if you have a story about a pen. But in reality, this pen to be here at this moment requires what? The necessity and the environment. The necessity and the environment. So for you to be here at this moment isn't because you woke up in the morning. Isn't because, you drove all the way here. It's because the necessity was there and the environment was there. Therefore, it gave rise to this effect. Therefore, it gave rise to this effect. So, what did you do? What you did was, due to ignorance, you thought that I'm doing all this. I put this together. I put this, and I put this structure together. This is my structure that I made. That's due to ignorance. It's almost like, nowadays we're getting, technically advanced, and therefore we have self-driving cars. It's almost as though we're trying to drive a self-driving car. We're trying to drive a self-driving car. And so, the car is turning left, but you're trying to turn right. And you get really angry. But when you're turning right and the car's turning right, you're now happy. The car is moving by itself. But you feel, no, I'm driving here. You're pressing down the gas pedal, but you're not going as fast as you want. The car is moving at its speed that it requires. All you have to do is what? Get out of the car and the car will still go. See, what we have to understand is, you're not driving. Necessity and environment is, or because of that, the car is driven. By who? Who's driving the self-driving car? Who's driving the self-driving car? Was it you, your partner, or the backseat drivers? Who's driving the self-driving cars? Causes come together to give rise to the effect. All we have to do is take a step back and see it as it is. Understand that this moment, it's only at this moment do we have an effect. Only at this moment are the causes coming together to give rise to this effect. Last moment is history. Next moment we have no clue. We plan ahead and we say, I'm going to do this tomorrow, that tomorrow, and then this and that and this and that. Having this idea that, I'm going to live 100 years. I mean, planning's not bad. I'm not against planning. It's this idea that, this is what my future has to be. That's what's bad. Because the past is history. The future is a mystery. You only have this moment. This moment, only this moment do we have. So, again, I'm not against planning. Planning, you need to plan, right? As our teachers always say, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So do have plans, but understand that even though, because what does a plan do? What is a plan? A plan is a way for you to, to direct the mind to a certain outcome. But normally when we make a plan, we get really upset because it's not going to the way we planned. It's coming. It's just too early. This is too late. They shouldn't have done this. They should have done that. We get really annoyed because we think the plan has to execute like this. We don't see the plan to be what? Cause and effect. So, see the world as it is. Look at the world as it truly is. Take a step back and look at this self-driving car drive itself. And finally, you go from physical pain will always be there. But mental pain doesn't. Mental pain is always self-inflicted. Okay. I do have a message for all of you, and that is, we have the New Year's coming up, right, 13th and 14th. However, the Saturday sermons, both Sinhala and English, will still be held, right? But I do think in the days of the New Year, the monastery will be closed. Yes. And also, the group discussions that happen after 12 group discussions at 12 will, from today forth, be held back in the library. So again, the group discussions will be held in the library from today onwards. Do we have any other notices? No? Okay. So remember, physical pain is certain, but mental pain is self-inflicted. Keep that in mind and practice. Right? Just keep practicing. Because the more you practice, the more free you become. Because we are the people who who border ourselves into this, into our own comfort zone and say, this is who I am. When actually you're limitless. You yourselves are limitless. But because of ignorance, we border ourselves and say, this is who I am, nothing else. So practice. And like I said, the children at a Noble International School, they've been doing exams, but even then, they don't border themselves. They are becoming more and more limitless. I mean, like I said, one of our 18 minus Anagarikas literally did an entire speech, right? I think it was a 5-minute speech. Like, she was born and bred in Sri Lanka, but yet she gave a 5-minute speech in German, right? Yeah, a language that she learned for how long? Do you know? 2, 3 years? 1 year. Wow, I stand corrected. 1 year, right? Even though she has exams, right? In the middle of exam season, literally, they came from exam and they went to exam, right? And again, our small noble hearts, they were also then, and he asked these amazing questions. Like another question that they asked was, I think, I can't remember actually. But they asked some really, really interesting questions because they're not limited. They're limitless. Because they realize that ignorance that limits them. The more they understand, the more free they become. They're extremely lucky, I think, to be surrounded by such noble people, right? So as yourselves. Right? Growing up in an environment where they are only encouraged to do the best they possibly can in every way possible, helping one another, doing or serving or dissolving themselves in the service of others. With understanding Dhamma, that's the only way you can actually do that. Dissolve yourself. Extremely lucky, and so are all of you. Something that I really do want you to all have in mind is, those of you who've been, practicing the Dhamma and been with the Dhamma for so long, to see the change that you've been through, to see that, because that itself is the motivation that pushes you forward. To go and say, this is who I used to be, then this is who I am now. That's the motivation that pushes you forward, that wants you to go, that one step further. Because I know how hard each and every one of you who are regular listeners, and also people who come to the other sermons in all our languages, how much they put their time and effort. But we all know one thing: that's the only time and effort that you can put into that's not going to be wasted. You earn money, you lose money. You get a house, you can lose a house. Death will take away from you. But your understanding, your happiness, no one can take that away from you. So do have that in mind, right? So do see the difference that you've made in yourselves, and let that be the motivation that pushes you forward. Okay, let's take a few moments to transfer merits and conclude today's session. Okay, let's take a few moments to transfer all the merits we've acquired by making offerings to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, chanting Pirit, listening Dharma, and engaging in various meritorious deeds today. So first and foremost, let's remind ourselves how incredibly fortunate we are to be in receipt of Buddhist teachings. And with immense gratitude, let's transfer the merits to the Bhikshu, Bhikshunis, Upasakas, who since time immemorial have protected and preserved the sublime teaching of the Buddha, Let's take a moment to transfer merits to all the chief players of the chapters who have dedicated their lives to no path and committed themselves to betterment of all sentient beings. Let's not forget among them will be the monks and nuns visiting local temples and nunneries who have always been by your side, through thick and thin, come and shine. Let's all take a moment to transfer merits to Guru Nanse, as well as the other monks resident at the monastery, as well as the anagarikas attached to the monastery. Let's take a moment to transfer merits and express our gratitude to those who make great effort to disseminate the teaching of the Buddha, be thereby translating them and share them out with others, inviting others to join them. May the power of the merits, if any of them be born in the world of planes, may they redeem themselves and be born in the bliss of plane. May by the power of the merits, may they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's all take a moment to transfer merits that we require to our devotees, friends of the monastery, who for sake of merits continue to sustain the Mahasangha. This includes every one of you who have contributed to the construction of the monastery, to those of you who provide the Mahasangha with shelter, alms, robes, medicines, as well as those who pass on their know-how, extend their well wishes. May through the power of these merits, may they abstain from unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to our mothers, fathers, husbands and wives, brothers, sisters, sons and daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews, and nieces, our elders, friends and acquaintances, employees, and to all those who have helped us, supported us, assist us in any shape or form. By the power of the merits, may they be healed of any physical or mental ailments, may they overcome any obstacles in their spiritual progress, may they abstain from unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So also take a moment to transfer merits to devas, brahmins, spirits, demons, primarily the Sakodeva, as well as numerous cosmic deities who have committed to protect and fulfill the Sambuddhasasana. Let's not forget among them will be a garden deities who keep watchful eye over us and keep us of harm's way. May they power the merits, may they prosper in divine power and wisdom, may they abstain from the meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So take one transfer merits to our ancestors who have predeceased us, to all who have been friends and family to us in this long journey in samsara, to all those who have helped us, support, assist us. Let's take a moment to transfer these merits. Also take a moment to transfer these merits to the members of the armed forces as well as the police force who have sacrificed their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation. May all those lost lives in the world be the friend or foe. Rejoice in the merits required today. So take a moment to transfer merits let's take a moment to transfer merits and express our just take a moment to transfer merits to all those who lost their lives in natural calamities such as tsunamis, earthquakes, landslide, pandemics, reminding ourselves among them will be those who have been friends and family to us in this long journey in samsara. May they power the merits. If any of them have been born in the willful plane, may they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May by the power of the merits, may they abstain from unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, let's all resolve, may the power and blessing of all the merits required throughout the day. We have been witness the event of many hundreds of thousands of Arhat nuances, Arhat Mahin nuances in this blessed land. And finally, with the power of all the merits required throughout the day, you and I, and everyone who made this program as a success, become an Arhat nuance or an Arhat Mahin nuance in this very life, in the era of the Gautama Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the blessing of Chipochen be with you all. The Mahasangha will now transfer their blessings to you. Raga ginen midetva, dvesha ginen midetva, moha ginen midetva, nibbana parama sukhayin, sukita taravetva, Nibbana parama sukhayin, sukita taravetva, Nibbana parama sukhayin, sukita taravetva, mamada siyalu loka, siyalu satvayo, Nibbana parama sukhayin, sukita taravetva, Nibbana parama sukhayin, sukita taravetva, නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයින් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. රාග ගිනි නිවේවා ද්වේෂ ගිනි නිවේවා මෝහ ගිනි නිවේවා නිවන් සැප ලැබේවා නිවන් සැප ලැබේවා නිවන් සැප ලැබේවා. තුන්වන්ගේ සුවිසිනාත මහා ගුණ වලින් සියලු ලෝක සිල් සත්‍යෝම නිබ්බාන ප්‍රමසකෙන් සිතරත්වා.